to Reb Moshe, we're good?
I'm getting it.
Beautiful, thank you. Oh, excuse me. Okay. There's always a 30-second delay. Good morning, everybody. Welcome. And today's class is dedicated by the man who just entered into the room. Reb Moshe Aaron and Miriam Landy as a schus for their children, Baruch Ahuva, Shmuel Menachem, Fegi, Chaya Bela, and Avraham Chaim. Larichis Yamim V'shanim Tovus, with nachas, health, happiness, prosperity, and abinyan adayad, and a lot of hatzlacha. And thank you very, very much, Reb Moshe, V'zugase, and Mazel Tov. Okay, so we are coming closer to the end of the Maimer of Likkutei Torah Chukas. Al Kein Yomru HaMoshlim Bayu Cheshboin Tibone V'Sikoinin Ir Sichoin Ki Eish Yotzam Mecheshboin Lehava Mikiryas Sichoin Achla Armayav Bali Bamais Arnaim. So where is it? Likkutei Torah Chukas, it's page 131. On top it says Chukas. We're middle of Siv Dalad, right? In the Hebrew it's page Samach Vav, column 1. Samach Vav, column 1. Samach Vav Amud Aleph, column Aleph. On top it says Chukas. So yesterday we had a very, very yesodisdik, a very fundamental explanation of the whole mahus of what davening is, what tefillah is. And the main point was, if we can summarize, that tefillah is really the realignment of the person's vision of the world, experience of the world, with the true core reality of the world, or in the language of Likkutei Torah, that the truth of Sovev Kol Almin, of Ani Hashem Lo Nisi, of the true Achdus, Habriya and Habayre, and where there's absolute oneness, and where the person is completely regulated in the deepest way, because they experience themselves viscerally, as though in themselves and the world as in the womb of Hashem. And we explained at length what would that look like if a person can actually embody it, if a person can actually experience that feeling. There is that subtlety, that menuchas hanefesh, that silence, that deep energetic sense of fulfillment and oneness that can't really be described in words. Because when we go into the world of words, we go into the world of intellect. When we go into the world of intellect, we go into the world of definitions, of descriptions. That's all a different part of reality. That's all an additional part of reality that can distract us from that reality. Hopefully it could be a continuum, it could be a flow, but it can also be a distraction. But if the person can actually viscerally, meaning viscerally means in the guf, mipsari echze elaka, can viscerally experience themselves in the womb of Hashem, literally like in the womb, subsumed. That's what Chassidus calls hiskalalus or bittel, like a fetus. It's nichlal. It's nichlal and it's batel. Batel means that its entire identity is inside, so to speak, part of the Ein Sof. There is a very deep sense of bliss, an infinite sense of bliss, really, not just deep, and a sense of oneness, and an inner energetic serenity that can't be replaced with anything else in the world. nothing else. Yeah. That was the big discussion we had. But we live in a different world. Viscerally, intuitively, we live in a different world, right? And davening is the time of the day that was dedicated to be able to bring together the two worlds. Or in the language of the Alter Rebbe, in his she is gala b'chinas ikar abakasha b'tfila, she is gala b'chinas sevav kol alman lias mislabesh toich kol alman. That's ikar abakasha b'tfila. That's the real request of tefillah. To be able to experience life from sevav kol alman, but it should be toich kol alman. Toich kol alman means inside my world, inside my consciousness, inside here right now. And all the brachas of Shemona Esrei essentially are revolving around this, as explained at length. And that's the secret of, after we say, Al Kein Yemru HaMoishlam, Bayu Cheshbon, which the Gemara in Baba Basra says, Elu HaMoishlam B'Yitziram, those who rule the Yetzer Hara, I mean those who have their life their life together. They're Moishlam B'Yitziram, they have it together. What's their secret? Their secret is that they always know to say Bayu Cheshbon, Bayu V'Nachshav Cheshbon Shalaylam, which means they know two things. First of all, they know that the definition of Olam is concealment. They always know that. They never fall prey to the outside, their own outside, also the outside on others. They never fall prey to the outside, because the outside energy, the Olam energy, is Miloshin Halam, it's concealing. There's a truth that's being eclipsed. So the animal consciousness is part of that Olam. It has certain messages, what you should be afraid of, what you should be anxious of, what you should be overwhelmed by. The moment you know it's Olam, it's Miloshin Halam, it's concealing something, you may take it seriously, but you don't take it that seriously. You know that it has to be dealt with. You have to go deeper. You don't take it as status quo, because there's something deeper. There's a deeper message here. There's Olam. The second thing they know is that they were sent down to deal with this Olam. It's not like they're missing something. Their neshama, their souls come from the deepest place of reality, and they were sent into Olam. So Boyu v'nachshav cheshbono shel Olam. When they have this cheshbon of Olam, of concealment, and they understand that they were sent down from a place where they were completely subsumed in the Ein Sof. And as he says in the beginning of the Ma'amad, the neshama is in the best place, perfect place. So it didn't need a headache. It wasn't like it's punished, or the neshama itself is divine. It's a chelik alakam al mamash, and it was nenes misiv hashchina. It was sent down in order to deal with the olam, to penetrate, to puncture the bubble, the helam, the concealment, to break through the wall, and through that is talik yikara de kuchabrichu b'chulu alman, which is the theme of the whole ma'amah Sovev Kol Alman, bariches. So therefore, they could be moishlim beyitzram. They never fall prey, and they never get schlepped down into that pipe, into that hole of despair or alienation, etc. And this is such a subtle machshava, because it's all internal. It's a very internal space. Because this energy is so silent. It's a cold mamadaka. It's so silent, it's so subtle, but underlies everything. But one needs to be able to surrender to it rather than control it. You can't control it. It's like a secret. You can't even look at it too much, because it's not defined in any way. You're talking about the divine himself. I know it sounds abstract for those who weren't here. It sounds very, very abstract. If you have a time, it's good to review yesterday's shir, because it's really fundamental stuff of life. Maybe the most fundamental. So after the Bayu Cheshbon, it's Tibana v'Sikainin Ir Sichen. What's Tibana v'Sikainin Ir Sichen? So the Rebbe said that Sichain is associated with the word Sicha. The Gemara says in Avodah Zarah and in other places that Sicha is Tefillah. Ein Sicha ela lashon Tefillah. Tefillah la nichiyata v'lefnei Hashem yishpich Sicha. Vayetze Yitzchak l'suach Basada. Sicha is Tefillah's mincha. Why is Tefillah called Sicha? Literally, it means a conversation. The Arizal says in Pri Etz Chaim, it's a silent conversation. But there's also other conversations. The Rebbe said Kosicha has a second meaning, swimming. Shchiyah is swimming. As he brought from Yeshaya, Kasha Yefaresh, HaShoicha, Lishchos. What's the idea of swimming? Shchiyah. It's moving away from one place to another place. Shchiyah with a sin in Hebrew. Okay. As it's a So when you say so it's consistent. Sorry, shchiyah, not shchiyah. So swimming is you're in one place and you move to another place. That's also the word hesach hadas. Hesach hadas is removing the das from one space to another space. That's why it says daiga belev ish yischena. So the Gemara in Yuma says either yischena means yisichena medaita, move it away from your das, or yischena la'achedim, speak to others. So here you have in the word sichain two meanings. Idea of dibur, speaking, yischena la'achedim, speak about it, or yischena from the word hesach hadas. The connection of the first idea to tefillah we understand. Tefillah includes speaking. What's the connection of hesach hadas to tefillah fakert? Tefillah needs das, not hesach hadas, kavana. So Alter Rebbe explains that that this is actually the essence of tefillah, and it starts by Hashem kavayachol, him to move away, because mitzad Hashem himself, he's Ein Sof, and he's beyond ratzon, and he's beyond any description and any identity and any midas. And the whole idea of tefillah is yihi ratzon, that there should be a flow from the absolute, infinite, undefined into a world in which there is definition and description, yihi ratzon. All of the hamshachas, as he said, Gal Yisrael, Mevarach Hashanim, Reifechele Ame Yisrael, Chanin Hadas, Chanan Amar B'Lisloyach, all the brachas of Shemon Esrei, which is all about healing the world, which is our partnership in tefillah. Because mitzad Hashem, it's takani Hashem loishanis, it's takaseiv of kalalman. Every moment is perfectly coherent and can't get any better. But the role of the person who lives in a world of fragmentation and in a world of olam and shana nefesh is to be able to link the two. So to be poil that hesach, that hasacha, that hazaza, that swimming from one side, from the pure infinity into the finite, that is the hazaza of tefillah. The greatest hazaza, the greatest movement from complete infinity, Ein Sof, which is beyond any description, into a finite world, as he puts it, that hu yisbarach netak v'yored b'madrigosa ya'atzmi shalamayla mebchines ratzon liyas loy ratzon b'hamshachas. Something that's beyond even the word ratzon, which is desire. Even that's a description. There should be a ratzon and a connection to hamshachas, to the flow, into the granular details of whatever the person is asking for and connecting to in tefillah. Merging the two realities. But that itself comes through the person's hasacha. Ruach aisi, ruach amshi, ruach. The sarusa de la'ela, the hisayrus, which hisayrus itself is moving away, arousing, moving away from where you were to where you're going. That comes from the person's hasacha. What's the person's hasacha? That's the whole idea that he spoke about, that the person moves away. That the real idea of tefillah is lefnei Hashem yishpech sicha. The soul pours itself out. What's trying to pours itself out? There's a shvichas hanefesh that comes from the grief of the soul, when it realizes that it's so distracted and so connected to things that are alien to its essence. And the pain of the soul feeling behevel bo b'choshech v'tzalmavis yelech b'rov hazman, that for so much of its time or so much of its life, it's so disrespectful of itself. It's so misunderstood by itself. Like I told you, the greatest pain, one of the greatest pains in life is to be misunderstood by others. A deeper pain is to be misunderstood by yourself. And usually, you're misunderstood by others. And then you yourself become those others who misunderstand you. One of the deepest pains of the soul is that it's completely misunderstood to itself. The person thinks that they're lowly, the person thinks that they're filthy, the person thinks they're dirty. The person doesn't understand the infinite dignity and flow in which the soul is in. And lifnei Hashem yishpech sichai, so that's the grief that comes before davening, the shvichas hanefesh batzarloi, that I completely misconstrued, misunderstood, misconceived who I am, what my soul really needs. That's what it is, because there's so many blockages. It's so easy to attach to all these blockages and decide that's who you are. It's very easy. experientially for sure, even if intellectually you have other explanations. When the moment the soul experiences what it really needs, what it doesn't need, who it really is, what is its truest desire. Like the Alter Rebbe's famous dveikus, ich will nicht das, ich will nicht, ich darf nicht das, I don't need this, I don't want this, I don't want this. Mili b'shamayim. Everybody according to their madrega. So that's the boyu cheshbon that creates the precedent of tibona v'sikain and ir sichain, the hasacha of the person, from the world in which the soul was so connected to and thought it needed to be connected to the world of Ein Sof, to the world of Sovev Kol Almin. So ruach, Aisi ruach, by Hashem you have exactly the same process, fakert. When the person rises from Emali to Sovev, from finite fragmentation to infinity, it causes that mamish the same movement above from Sovev to Mamali, because there's the merger of those two realities. That's the b'chin of Mesiras Nefesh me'umke de liba. As he puts it, she'yenetek v'nivdol me'midoisav ha'bahamiyos ha'mastirib. The person moves away from the animal instincts that block the soul, because these are all coping mechanisms that we fall into as a part of surviving. So this is what happens to me, and I don't even know it, but this completely is eclipsing who I am. And davening is that time that the soul is preparing itself through being, he says, the night before, a mara de chushbana, that allows the soul to be able to experience the sibana v'sikain and ir sichain, to be a real davening, she'yenetek v'nizin me'adbas midas the nefesh habahamas. That's where we ended. To be able to move away from the hadba. Hadba is the entrenchment, matbeya shetav chachamim, in the midas of the nefesh habahamas. Yeah. It's certainly one way it happens. The animal consciousness looks around already right when it's born. The soul is a chelik elokam imal, but it comes into an animal consciousness. It comes into a guf. They didn't get the memo. So they say, you're separate and you need to survive. And the question is, how are you going to survive? So let's develop all the skills and mechanisms in order to be able to survive. And all the midos of the nefesh habahamas, all the instincts, cravings, drives, temptations, fears, anxieties, personality traits, characteristics, called midos. It's all midos. Those become, the word midah, what's midah? Midah means a form, a midah, right? A measurement. Your jacket has a midah, your shirt has a midah, your hat has a midah, your shoes have a midah. Everybody has a midah, a size in which you measure yourself. Just like you have a midah, a physical midah, right? You're a 42, you're a 44, you're 46, whatever it is. We also have a psychological midah. This person is an angry person. This person is aggressive. This person is a people's pleaser. This person is shy and bashful. This person doesn't open their mouth. This person doesn't close their mouth. I won't be ma'idich on that one. Pun intended. Yeah. This person is very confrontational. This person doesn't know how to confront. This person loses it. Mitpotzetz. This person explodes. This person implodes. This person is anxious. They're just anxious. They don't have menuchas hanefesh. This person is never anxious. They're just detached. They're like dead. They're not anxious. They're numb, frozen. Everybody has the midah. This is the midah you come with. The Alter Rebbe had a chassid. His name was Shmuel Munkus. Shmuel Munkus was a very, very big person. He was a great, great man. He was a spiritual giant. He was also very, very funny. He had an unbelievable sense of humor. So, like a very deep sense of humor. So they say they were once walking in front of the house of the Alter Rebbe. He was athletic, so he hung himself up. He hung himself up on the porch. It's a chuvgang, like he started to hang. They said, "Anaya mishagas." So he said, "As megate by a shuster, when you go by a shoemaker, a shoe store, what do you see in the window? You see shoes. Why do you see shoes? Because the shoemaker wants to show off his merchandise. Yeah, you go by a fruit store, there's fruits in the window. So he says, "Megate by a rebbe, daf hanging a chassid." He has to hang a chassid so he could show the merchandise. So everybody has a midah, right? What? I don't know exactly how the story comes in, but it popped into my head. It's connected on some level. So the midah is, everybody has midas. Midas is, this is my presentation. This is my size. Everybody comes in a different size. Right? Not one size fits all. So, a mold, yeah, very good. A mold. And it's very hard to leave that mold, right? Because that mold was sometimes we're invested in for 30 years, 40 years, 50 years. We're not talking about small little molds that are insignificant. We're talking about real molds, who you are, how you carry yourself, how you respond to situations. So that's what he said. That's the Nekuda. The moment the soul realizes how much of this mold completely doesn't define me. It's like a joke of jokes. There is grief there. There is grief that I lived in a mold that has nothing to do with me. And ich habe sich eingerät that this is called survival because mitzad nefesh habahamis, this was taka. This was taka, a great coping mechanism. And sometimes a person could live their entire life in these mechanisms and not even know of anything else. And when it gets challenged, they just build bigger. The mold becomes a little thicker, a bit bigger. Because it's safety. It's called safety. It's called safety. So there's a very deep grief in that, as he puts it. Yosef das begdulas Hashem, Yosef machoiv benafsha. The more that, when the moment the person realizes this MS, the mold this mold has nothing to do with me. The mold was a way in which I operated because I thought this is what I needed to survive. And there's a tragedy there, there's a pain there. And that's the hasacha. That's the biggest hesach hadas. I'm out of it. You swim away. I'm out. I'm not defined by this anymore. There could be a part of me that is still defined by it. I could look at it. I can have compassion on it. I can give it a hug and I could say, I'm here for you, my little mold. But we're going to let you get moldy and we're going to move on with life. You can actually feel it. You can actually feel that part that is, pun intended, always. And you can feel that part. You can feel its triggers. You can feel it screaming. It's throwing a tantrum. You're crazy. You're jumping off a roof. You're jumping off a bridge. You're killing yourself. You're going to destroy everything. You can calm it down. And you could say, I'm not there anymore. I know who I am. Or at least I know more who I am. That's the ultimate hasacha v'hazaza. That movement in the soul, going away from that mold, from that entrenchment, into the real quality of the soul. What is the real quality of the soul? The real quality of the soul is you're incredibly powerful. You're infinite. The Bezriya left me a message yesterday after the Shia. He said that this is the only real way you could teach people lefargen acherim. You know what pirgun is? Pirgun is farginen. You know, all the eitzes in the world of how you create avos Yisrael, achdus Yisrael, unity between couples, between people, between communities. Sometimes all the eitzes are all part of the mold of the nefesh habahamis. This cheshbon, that cheshbon, but you're still chasing your own tail. The only real way is achdus Hashem. Achdus Hashem means when the person truly, truly, energetically can lean into their own reality as being one with infinity. B'chin of Sevav Kalalman, as we said, you're in Hashem's womb. You just have a different type of you're in a different frequency. It's not anymore, I worked so hard, how dare you come in, how dare you speak like this. You're just in a different space. And you have to always remind yourself, because the Nefesh HaBahamas doesn't trust it. It's like, no, you you have to be harsh, you have to be tough. Like, these are all users, they're a bunch of sharks. And it's very easy just to live there. It's very easy, you just go right back in there. Yeah, and then maybe I'll learn another vart of Musar, so I'll have Musar for that. That's my gaiva and my chutzpah and my kas, and I'm going to have to go to Gehenna, and I'm going to come into a gilgul and a dog, and whatever, all these things, fine, okay. But you're not dealing with the core. The core issue is that I'm mutba. I'm mutba in the mold, and I don't know how to get out of it because I'm just in that space. So all the eitzes that I may look for are just eitzes within being stuck. But you're not dealing with the core itself. The core itself is that b'tzad nefesh habahamis, there's a sense of abandonment from the source. And it needs to find its way, and everybody finds their own way, whatever that means, based on your parents, based on what you saw as a child, based on what you saw in the world around you, and we all adapt. We all adopt very, very sophisticated ways, And we grow into that, and we sometimes live our whole life that way. But there's a torturous element there. There's a dissonance there, because I'm not connected to my core. I'm not connected to the core of reality. The only real healing in the world happens when you start viscerally experiencing yourself like you're in the womb of Hashem, literally, not figuratively, not as a metaphor, but literally, you're in that space, and there, everything changes. Because you're in the most perfect, coherent, unified, integrated space that you can be. Kagamul alayima, yeah. Nafshi kagamul alayima. Im loy shivisi v'daimamti, nafshi kagamul alayima. V'daimamti is from the word silence. There's a silence over there. Because words will never capture this. Why will words never capture it? Because words themselves are part of the creation of Olam Shana Nefesh that define things. A word by definition looks for definition. I can't speak if I don't define. If you want to not define things, you're quiet. You're quiet, right? Belibi Tzafanti. The Alter Rebbe had a son, his name was Reb Chaim Avram. He had 3 boys. The oldest was the Mittler Rebbe, Rabbeinu Dov Ber. The youngest was Reb Moshe. The French kidnapped him. They took him into abduction, Napoleon's army. And the middle one was Reb Chaim Avram. Reb Chaim Avram he looked like his father, but he was very, very quiet. He didn't speak a lot. When the Rebbe passed away, the Mittler Rebbe became the second Chabad Rebbe. When the Mittler Rebbe passed away, Reb Chaim Avram was still alive. But he was completely refused, and it went to the grandson, the Tzemach Tzedek, who was also a son-in-law of the Mittler Rebbe. But he lived with the Tzemach Tzedek. He was old, he was his uncle. And by the way, when the painting of the Alter Rebbe was discovered in terms of the Tzemach Tzedek, a little bit after, they knew that it was the Alter Rebbe because everybody knew Reb Chaim Avram, and Imamish was identical. And why am I saying it? They used to ask him a lot to say my mother, and he never wanted. He always refused. And once they nudged him, and he agreed that Shalashuddis will say something. So it was a big simcha that he's going to say something. And he was sitting there, and the whole Olam was there. And it came time, and he looked at the Olam, and he said, Bilibi tzafanti imrasecha leman le'echtalach. He quoted a pasuk. I concealed the words in my heart so that I shouldn't sin. And he didn't say a word. In other words, when it came to speak, he just couldn't do it. He said, Bilibi tzafanti imrasecha leman le'echtalach. What's the sin of speaking? The sin of speaking it's not a sin, it's not an aveda to speak. But echta comes from the word chet is miloshen chisaron. Koileya al asayre v'lo yechta. He didn't want to cheapen anything through words, because words right away go into the world of definition. Even if it's not cheap, it's cheap. Even if it's not cheap, a word means package it. You have to package it. A word has a beginning, a middle. A world is oisius. Bereishis bara lekim es hashamayim ve'esaretz. That's part of creation. Creation is oisius. Oisius is the bridge between the undefined and the defined. How did the world become a defined place? Through Isis, Asarim Amaras. And yet we live in the world of Dibur, right? That's going to be the whole point there. Sicha, Dibur. So why am I saying this about Dibur? I forgot what was I saying before. There's a silence in this. There's a very, very deep silence in this. You always have to ask yourself, are the words continuing the silence, or are the words distracting the silence? If the words are continuing the silence, adarabba, speak. If the words are a distraction from silence because you're uncomfortable in silence, those are dangerous words. Yeah. Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, Olav Shalom, the British chief rabbi, once said, what's the difference between a fabrengen, a party, and a sermon? A rabbi's sermon, a party, and a fabrengen. So he said as follows. By a sermon, one person speaks and nobody listens. Rabbi's sermon you don't listen to. A party, everybody speaks and nobody listens. A fabrengen, nobody speaks and everybody listens. That's the difference. So this is the hasacha of tefillah is that the person moves away, wants to move away naturally. This is not. I'm not going to associate with this anymore. I'm not going to be living in this mold, in this construct, in this schema, even though it's been there for a long time. And there's a grief over there, there's a merirus there. And that hasacha of the person creates ruach, I see ruach, va'amshich ruach, by Hashem kevayachol, the same hasacha, from his atzmius into mamala kalam, which is the whole idea of tefillah. So that's the connection of tefillah to sicha in terms of hesach, hasacha, of schiyah, of swimming from one place to another place. Okay, that was, I think, the main nikud that we discussed. Then you'll have what? Learning doesn't help. Learning is good, but learning is only the beginning. It's really the internalization of it, energetically. Okay, so now let's see weiter. The language of the pasuk is Tibana v'sikainen ir sichen. What's Tibana v'sikainen ir sichen? Who's talking about a city? If you're right that sichen is tefillah, and that comes from Boyu Cheshbon, and it's all a hamshech te'elu ha'moishlim beyitzram, it's all one hamshech. Very nice. Where's Tibana v'sikainen? It's talking about a physical city. So the Rebbe now continues. You see, it's 131, the first column, the line starts Netak v'nizayin mahadbas midas de nefesh habahamas. It's like 10 lines from the bottom. Amnam loshen tibana v'sikainen ha'inyan hu kibet tefillah tzarech liyaz gamkin davket tzirufei yosis hadibur. The word tibana v'sikainen is because by tefillah there has to be tzirufei, the combinations of yosis hadibur. We say davening, it's dibur. Ukepirish hapashet the sicha loshen dibur. L'chein nemen al zeh loshen binyan k'may habinyan me'avonim kach diburei atfillah nikroyim batim. That's why it uses the word binyan, construction. Because just like when you build a structure from stones, the same is true dibur. The words of tefillah are called homes. It says in Sefer Yitzirah that oisis are called stones, pebbles. The lashon in Sefer Yitzirah is shtei avonim, shtei avonim boinus, shtei batim. 2 letters build 2 homes, meaning a home is built from many stones together, many bricks together. Every ois is called a brick. You put together oisius, and that's how you build a home. In our language, that would be a word. So, for example, if you have 2 oisius, aleph and beis, how many homes can you build? You can build 2 words, which are 2 homes. So if a letter is a brick, a word is the combination of many letters, which creates the combination of many bricks that forms a home. And in a home you could live in. Just like when you have a word, you're saying a message. Beis, reish, vav, chaf is baruch. Mem, lamed, chaf is melech. Oilam is ayin, vav, lamed, mem. You have a home. If you just have an ayin and a vav and a lamed and a mem separately, you're homeless, exactly. Why is this an important idea in Kabbalah, Sefer Yitzirah? Because Sefer Yitzirah sees the building blocks of the entire universe are oisius, what we call today DNA. So essentially, the whole world is built from oisius. It's oisius that build the world, and the combinations of different oisius are the different building blocks that create the diversity in the world. Just like in a person, every living organism, the sequence of DNA is different. So there's a banana and there's a human being, there's a chimpanzee and there's an elephant, right? There's a cherry tree and there's a lemon tree. There's a lot of similarities. They're using the same oisius. They're using the same DNA, the same chemicals, but the sequence is different. Just like the house, it's using the same bricks or the same style of bricks, but the combinations are completely different. You have this type of home, this type of home, this type of structure, that type of structure. All of Gashmi, the whole universe, the whole cosmos, the whole universe, and beginning with our planet, it's all based on Oisius. B'dvar Hashem Shamayim Nasa. So Oisius are the building matter of the world. Yeah, Shivas Binyanim, yeah. That's why Diktuk is called Binyan, yeah. And B'chlal Diktuk, Binyan, Poyel, this type of Binyan, that type of Binyan. So it's based on the Sefer Yitzirah. So Shtei Avonim, Shtei Oisius, Shtei Avonim, Boinus, Shtei Batim. With 2 stones, you build 2 houses. Aleph, Beis is Av. But you can also have Ba, which means come, boy, or Av. If you have 3 oisius, you can build more homes. You have 4 oisius, you can build more homes, etc. You have 5 oisius. Yeah, it says that you have chamish avanim, minus kuf chav batim. You can build 120 homes with 5 oisius. With 6 oisius, you can build, I think, 720 homes. And once you go into a few letters, you stop counting it because it goes crazy. It's enormous. It's at some point it's beyond what people can imagine. So that's why tibana v'sikain and ir sichai. So tefillah is you're building a city. One home is a home. You build many homes. You have a city. You have a community. So you have a word and another word. So tefillah is not just one word. Haidu Lashem kiru b'shma yadi v'amim aliloisav shiru loy. So tibana v'sikain and ir sichain. That's the second pshat in sicha, miloshin dibur. The sicha, moving away, that's the foundation of tefillah. But the tefillah itself is built of what? Of words, of conversation, of communication. That's what it is. That's the second inyan of sicha. Tibana v'sikain and ir sicha. V'zeh shamar David HaMelech alav shalom. This is what David HaMelech says in Tehillim. Erev v'voker v'tzarayim asicha v'ehema v'yishma kaili. In the evening, in the morning, in the afternoon, I will speak. Ve'em, I will express myself. I will express my pain, and he will listen to my voice. When the tefillah is in a way of a sicha, like we explained before, what's a sicha? A sicha is the hasacha, the hazaza, the moving away from my present space of the midas of the nefesh habahamis into the true infinite energy that I'm completely in the womb of Hashem. I'm not abandoned. I'm not separate. I'm not worthless. Because all of the midas of the nefesh habahamis come from some form of separation and abandonment that requires me to become whatever my nefesh habahamis needs me to become. So at the core of the animal soul, there's a deep fear of worthlessness. There's a deep fear of abandonment. There's a deep fear of you're alone in the world. You're alone in the world and you have to make it work. There's sharks all around you. You're swimming in a very, very dangerous ocean. That when the person can go away from that space, that you're actually in the womb of God, a sicha, ve'ehema, then vayishma kaili, then there's the hasacha melmaila also, and that's the vayishma kaili. V'ayin mashakasa b'dibir amaschal v'chol banayich, u'pirish v'sikainen, this is tibana. What's v'sikainen? Hayin mashakasa b'tzdaka tikainani. Through tzedakah you will be established. The Gemara says, Rebbe Lezer would give a pruta to a poor man and then daven because it says, Ani b'tzedek echze panecha b'tzedek tikainani. So here's the two elements of davening, the dibur and the tzedakah, tibana v'sikainan. He adds here a vart. Behine pirush sicha in sicha na yisparish gamken ala Torah b'tziruf yotzis shaba. Till now we explained sicha as tefillah. Sicha, which is sicha, and sicha na, beautiful conversation, also can relate to Torah, which is also made up of oisius. Behine David HaMelech alav shalom amar ma'ahavti seiresecha kol hayomi sichasi. And Tehillim Kuf Yutes, yeah, you know the song Ma ma'ahavti. See again the word sicha for Torah. I love Torah a whole day. This is my sicha. This is my conversation. The word is sicha again. Uksiv, he also says in Tehillim, your laws, your edus is sichali. It's my conversation. What's the connection? In davening, we explained there's two elements. There's the words of davening, sicha, and there's the hasacha, the swimming away, the moving away by davening. Both on the person's side and on Hashem's side. It's going out of the mold that defined me when I didn't know who I was. Which it's so easy to fall into, so I'm going out of that. What is it in Torah? All the combinations of Isis and Torah, whether it's Torah Shebeksav, whether it's Mishnah, whether it's Halacha, it's Agada, it's all called Sicha. Just like we explained before, that it's moving away from place to place. But the Gemara says in Maseches Eruvin, Daf Yud, Daf Chaf Aleph, Al Pasuk Kvutzois of Taltalim. Shahoy Rabbi Akiva Deira shal kol kaitz v'kaitz tilei tilim shal halachas. The Gemara says in Maseches Eruvin, it's also Maseches Menachos, Chavtes. It says in Shir Hashirim, Kvutzoisov Taltalim. Kvutzoisov means his hair locks, his hair blocks. Kvutzoisov are the strands of hair. Taltalim, they're beautiful. They're like they're round. They're curly. Ringless or curly, yeah. Kvutzoisov Taltalim. So literally, it's a description of the handsomeness of the groom in Shir Hashirim. But the Gemara teaches that Kvutzoisov al kol koitz v'koitz, on every strand of hair, on every nekuda of Torah, every kotze v'kotze, every edge is Taltalim, is tilei tilim shel halachas. It says about Rabbi Akiva that al kol koitz v'koitz, on every nekuda, every thorn, every part, even the smallest edge, smallest strand of hair, Rabbi Akiva expounded, til taltalim is tilei tilim, which means mountains and mountains and mountains of halach. What's the shaykhis to sicha? V'hinei nimshlu halachas l'bchinas. So we see here that Chazal, based on the pasuk of Shir Hashirim, compare halacha to hair. Kvutzoisov are all those hair locks, all those braids, all those strands of hair. And taltalim, they're curly. So halacha becomes suddenly called Cyrus, here, Shyrus. And that's the idea of kol koitz v'koitz, tilei tilim shel halachas. Every single one of those strands. It's what the pasuk says in Daniel, Saresh kamar naka. The hair of the Rebbeinu Shalom's head kavayachal is like white wool. Amar is wool. Naka is clean white. What's the mashal? Hashem has here, it says in Daniel, Sefer Daniel, he says he's sitting, Hashem is sitting, Yosef, and he's Sa'aresha Kamar Naka, his garment is like white snow, Levushik is like chiver, and the hair of his head is like white wool. Which wool also is the Cyrus of the sheep. Just like here that grows from the head. So they come from the skull. They're boikim, they come out, and there's a ha'ara, there's a light from the brain that's nimshach, that flows and is manifested in the hair. The hair is alive, the hair is growing. Yet, when you cut the hair, there's no nerves in the hair, so it's not painful. So on one hand, there's a flow of energy that comes from the brain into the hair. That's why the hair grows. And it grows from the mayach. It's a continuum. But on the other hand, it's not like when you cut the hair, the brain is in danger. Right? You don't even feel that it's the one part, like nails. And here, you cut it, the person doesn't even feel pain. Huh? It could be. We'll see, 1 second. So kach, here it's not. Kach, ayidei ha'alochas, nimshach michachmasi is barach the leis machshavet tfisa bikla. So here we have a davar nifla. Every halacha is like a hair. It accesses a truth from his wisdom, which be'etzem leis machshavet tfisa bikla. No thought can grasp it. Your thoughts are very deep. They're beyond human comprehension. And yet the miracle of Torah is that this ma'od amku machshavei secha is enclosed in the halachas that are arranged before us, that the human being can grasp it. That's why it's called a saira. Like it says in Tehillim, Keshem and hatoiv al harosh, yored al what's the Keshem and hatoiv al harosh, yored al azokin skan aaron. So the good oil on the head flows down the beard of Aaron. Shem and Mishchas Kodesh. Shem B'chinas Kodesh, Mila B'garma. It says in Zohar, Kodesh is the only word that's on its own. It's just a noun, Kodesh. It's not related to anything else. It's pure holy. Nimshechu Mislabish B'hilchas HaTorah. That's the Shem and Mishchas Kodesh, which is Chachma, Shem and Mishchas Kodesh. It flows in the halacha, which is Yored al Azaken, which is the side is the here. So that's Kvutzois of Taltalim, that each Koitz v'Koitz, every one is Taltalim. It's called Kvutzois of Taltalim Tilei Tilim Shel Halachas. Each one is like another element of Saida, because on one hand it's a halacha that you can grasp, you can learn. If you go deeper and deeper, what is it? It's Leis Machshavat Tfisa B'Klal. It has Ein Soif depth, every halacha. So Torah has so many layers, because really it looks like just a Saida. But if you go to the source of the Saida, you're talking about the Mayach, the Chachma, which is Chachmasi Yisbarach. So there's the Pshat, and there's the Remes, and the Drush, and the Saida, and in each one there's infinite layers of wisdom, because on one hand it's finite, that's why you could learn it, you can grasp it, you could be a Teufus, like the Saida, and the Chayre, it even looks like very physical and technical. It doesn't seem so infinitely deep, but if you really know, if you're Teufus, the Oimek of it, you can see, and you can go deeper and deeper ad Ein Sof. So understand what Torah is. It's a movement from Ein Sof. It's like it's a transformation from taking wisdom that's essentially unfathomable and putting it into a keli that the person can grasp. That's what it is. That's the greatest hazaza. That's the greatest movement from infinity to the finiteness. It's called the chasen. We're called the kala. The Gemara says chasen is chayz darga, from the word nachis, going down from pure Ein Sof into a tzir. That's the greatest hazaza. Why? Kol hayomi sichasi. So he's not just explaining and saying, I love you so much, I talk about you. He's explaining what he loves. Peter sicha v'hazaza. Kol hayoim hi sichasi, because because the Torah gives me access to the Gili of Ein Sof through the Oisius, which are called Sa'aresha, the hair of his head. So Kol Hayoim Hi Sichasi, I know this is the Sicha, this is the Hazaza, this is the way to access infinity. That's the power of Limud HaTorah. The power, why Ma'hafti Torah Secha, Kol Hayoim Hi Sichasi, because I'm not just looking at stam letters or just limited ideas. Essentially, it's a sicha, kol hayomi sichasi. It's a sicha v'hazaza from pure Ein Sof into something that I can grasp. The koy al bali mikra mishnah v'talmud. So that's al derech again, weiter sicha. This also explains very geschmack the tibone v'sikainen er sicha, and if it's a Torah, just like we said before on Tefillah, because if it's an inyan of Torah, Talmidei Chachamim are called boinim al tikri bonayich v'chol bonayich l'medash. We say in the morning al tikri bonayich ela bonayich the binyane. This is the binyane shel olam, so that's why it's tibone v'sikainen er sicha. So this is the hemshich of Tibana v'Sekayin Ersichin that he explained in Tefillah. He just added it can also be applied to Torah. What does the pasuk say right afterwards? Why? Literally it means Bilam told Sichon you can come into Cheshbon and conquer it because Moav will be defeated. Ki eish yatsa mecheshbon l'havim mekirya Sichon. A fire came out of Cheshbon and a flame came out of the city of Sichon. A fire came out of Cheshbon to defeat Moav, and a flame came out of the city of Sichon to destroy Moav and allow Sichon, Melech HaMairi, to conquer the cities of Moav, which is basically Cheshbon. As we explained, it belonged to Moav and it all went over to Sichon, Melech HaMairi, before the Jews conquered it. So the Rebbe goes weiter, the pasuk says in Shir Rishafer Rishvei Shal Heves Yutkei. What's Rishafer Rishvei Shal Heves Yutkei? Literally it means it glows. Rishafim are glowing coals. Like when you have a fire, you have coal, and the coal is very hot and it's glowing. That's called Rishafeh. So Rishafer, Rishvei Shal Heves Yutkei. So you have here two lashonas. Rishvei, that's a glowing coal, a coal that's on fire, burning. Shal Heves is a flame of Yutkei. There's brackets over here, a few lines. It's a comment from the Tzemach Tzedek, but let's go after the brackets, like 5 lines later. The word rishvei al lashon kodesh means a coal, a burning coal, glowing coal. Rashi says it clearly on the pasuk u'biyadei ritzva. It says by Yeshaya Hanavi that he said that I'm sitting among Jews who are contaminated. What was they say? Sfasayim anochi yoshev. I'm sitting among a nation that's contaminated. Their lips are contaminated. So it says one of the Sirafim, one of the Malachim, flew over to Yeshaya Navi ubiyadei ritzpa. In his hand was a ritzva. What's a ritzva? It says a gachelas, a burning coal, and he put it on Yeshaya's mouth. Because of what he said about the Jewish people, he called them am tmei sfasayim. So he burnt Yeshaya's mouth to clean it. He needed a cleansing that he called the Jewish people Am Tmeis Vasayim. Ad Kedei Kach. Even Yeshaya Hanavi, when he spoke so disparagingly about the Jewish people, his lip was burnt with a gachelis. Biyoder ritzvah. So Rashi says, ritzvah is a gachelis. So the word rishva, tzaddik and shin, in Hebrew are interchangeable because they come from the same Eitzayas. Zayin, Samach, Shin, Reish, Tzaddik are 5 interchangeable letters. So Ritzpah, Rishva are similar words. Rishafeha, Rishvayesh is a coal that's on fire. Vahainu, what creates a coal? How do you have coal? The answer is Masha'esh Tzayda from Machala Eitzim V'nasa Gachelas. When the fire burns and destroys wood, logs, lumber, it becomes a gachelas. It doesn't start like that. It starts off with a log. The log catches on fire. The fire penetrates it, and consumes it. And now at the end of the fire, right after many hours, you have gachelas. It's full of coal. The essence of the wood, is the gachelas. What's shalheves? That's rishafeh. So rishafeh is when the fire burns up the wood, you have a gachelas. What's shalheves? Shalheves who's halav. That's the flame itself, the lav itself. The fire itself is called shalheves. Ein b'mishnah seif perikei debates. So you have rishafeh or rishvayesh, talking about the soul. You have the fact that the soul is like a coal glowing, a coal burning. You don't want to touch it. And then you have shalheves yutke. So it's just two things, same things. It's on fire, just two different words. This is no, it's two different yama. Ve'inyan b'chinezu b'nefesh al derech ha'mawar b'makamacha b'ira pasuk v'ayelachem l'tzitzis hanala b'dibir l'masl ki'ata neidi she'pa'oid ha'nei yesh beis gvanin. When you look at a candle, there's two different colors. Nahoida tichla or nahoida chivra. Nahoida tichla means the word chelas, the blue flame, and nahoida chivra is the white flame. If you ever look at a candle burning, you'll see the lower part of the fire on the wick is bluish, blackish. The higher you go, like become yellow, and then the higher you go, becomes white. Nahoida chivra. So generally, you have nahoida tichla. That's the darker light, the darker flame, the darker fire. Nahoida chivra. Chivra means white. Is the white fire. Nahoida tichla, the dark fire, which is like blackish, bluish. Hu agavan hasamach lepsila. You'll see that's the color of the fire that's on the wick. Not above the wick. You have the part of the flame that's above the wick. You have a part of the flame that's engulfing the wick itself. That which engulfs the wick itself will usually never be white. Why? It's pashtal al piteva that way. Pashat shemekilyin hapsila hi nasa, because that fire is coming in direct contact with the psila. It's consuming the psila. So the colors are coming from the psila. Shedavar she'enoi minoi kolav v'nivar by. Something that's not its min, something that's not the fire, is being consumed and burnt up by the fire. So the fire is transformed to the color of blackish and bluish. Where you have the fire above the wick, that's already the fire in its own purity. So over there, it's taka change, it's more yellow, and then it becomes white. That's Pashat and Gashmis. V'hu inyan bitul hayesh. There's two fires in the person also, the soul. There's the nahoida tichla and there's the nahoida chivra. The first nahoida, the first fire is the confrontation with the wick. That something that's not your min, is being burnt up, right? It's a confrontation. The log or the wick is being burnt up by davar she'enei minai. So hu inyan bitul hayesh, shayesh the nefesh habahamis nishapich mechashaychel and nahoida v'nichlol be'esh. The yesh of the nefesh habahamis, the sense, the egoic mind of the egoic separateness of the animal soul, is transformed from darkness into light and consumed in the fire. That's like the wick itself or the log itself. That's nahoida tichla. That's a darker fire. V'zeu inyan avas oilam. That's pshat avas oilam aftanu shemibchines oilam vehelem nivrar liyus nichlal batal belakus. It's the bittul, the love that comes from oilam, from concealment. When the concealment becomes nivrar, becomes refined, and nichel becomes subsumed and bottled telekus, that creates the darker flame. The light fire is it's not avas oilam, it's avarabba. Avas oilam is the love that's created from concealment. Avarabba is the love that comes from above, so it's pure, it's white. It doesn't have the properties of darkness. When the love is coming from the animal soul being transformed, it has the properties of the wick, it has the properties of the animal soul, so therefore it has a darkness to it. That's its power. When it's the pure light that comes from above, it's called avarabba. It's not created from concealment, it's created from above. It's a different type of light. That's the difference of rishveyesh and shalheves yutke. Rishveyesh gacheles. The first fire is a coal, or something else that's not fire becomes transformed into fire. The wood is not fire. Wood is wood, and it's stubborn. It's not easy to get a log on fire. It fights until it's consumed. So when something which is not fire becomes consumed and transformed into fire, the fire has a different type of color, it has a different type of energy. That's how the nefesh halikis uses its fire to catch onto the wick, to the log of the animal soul, and make it nichel and elikus. And he brings a zoyar by Mashakasa Bezer Parshas Nech Binya V'Harsine Ashen Kule B'Pnei Ashiyara Delav Hashem Be'esh Tochazi Eish Nafak Milaga V'Iyudak V'Achid B'Mila Acher Levar the Lav Iyudak Hachik which is by Makamach V'Im Bezer B'Dei Rabba. When the Har Sinai is Ashen Kule, so you have an Eish that comes from within, and it's very, very refined, but it connects to something that is outside of the Eish that doesn't have that refinement, and therefore it creates a different dynamic. That's why by Rishafeh it doesn't say Yutke. By the second one it's Shalheves Yutke, it's the flame of the divine that comes from above. After the arousal from below of the dark fire comes the white fire, which is the Avarabba, which is Shalheves Yutke. You typhus what he's saying here? Yeah. In other words, there's two types of fire. There's Nahira Tichla, there's a Nahira Chivra. There's the fire that comes from the confrontation with the log, so to speak. So it has the log that's burning. So it has those properties. Yeah, then there's the fire that's represented above the wick, it's like above it. So over there it's always going to be more white. What is this in Avodah Sa'adim? What is it in Avodah? Yeah. One is the Ava that's created from the Nefesh HaBahamas itself. Like from the log that's burning. So it has the properties of the Nefesh HaBahamas. That's why it's called a darker fire, Nahira Tichla. Sometimes called Nahira Uchma. It won't mean dark, Tchelis, bluish, blackish. It has those properties. And then you have Shalheves Yutke, that's a different type of Ava. That's a Lechatchila, it's a pure divine Ava. Huh? Yeah. It's not from confrontation. There's two different states in a person. And each one creates a fire, but it's a very different type of fire. One fire is created from struggle, from confrontation. There's a fire, there's a log, and you want the fire to catch on the log, says, you can try 100 times. The log says, I'm not doing this. Huh? Yeah, I'm made to be a klutz. I'm not made to be a fire. I'm not doing it. And even when it catches on fire, there's a lot of noise, right? There's a crackling, there's a tension there. And the bigger and thicker the log, the harder it is to catch it on fire. Once it gets on fire, it's a fire. And it becomes a gachelis, it becomes a kol. That's rishafeh, rishvayesh. What is that in a person? That's you're working with all of your protectors. You're working with all of your defenders, with all of your protectors, with all of your temptations, with all of you're working with them. And it's not easy. And when you finally manage to calm them down and bring them into the flame of godliness, it's a very, very special moment. But it's a moment that's created from the animal soul's properties. So therefore the fire has in it all of the qualities that you were confronting. All of those energies are brought in to the equation, all of them. That's its beauty, that's its power. That's called Avas Olam. The love that's created from the concealment. That's why it has a very loud noise, it has a very deep passion, it has a deep intensity. The Gachelis is quite hot and boiling because it actually comes from the resistance. It's the resistance itself that contributes to the passion. The struggle itself, yeah. When that gets on fire, that makes the ish. Then you have a different type of fire, and that's avarabba. That's l'chatchila, very edel. It's a very pure fire. It's ba'al mo'mayla. It comes from above. It's the fire of the nefesh elikis on its own. It's not from the relationship with the nefesh habahamis. When you have to work through something, and you have to go through that place, so you're going into the thicket of darkness, and you're trying to bring the fire into it, that's one type of fire. And the fire is going to be different, because in that fire you're going to see all of the avodah that you did with the nefesh habahamis. The second type of fire is a fire that l'chatchila, it's very pure. Nahira chivra, it's light, it's bright, it's transcendent. It doesn't come from the involvement and the confrontation with the darkness. Right. So he says only when you do the first do you have the second. After this harusa de lasata of the first type, your shafar shveyesh, then you can have the shalhevis yutkei. That's why he says the first one is called bittul hayesh. What's that bittul hayesh? Something that's einoi minoi. By nature, I'm not interested in the fire. So when you actually catch on fire, there's such a hispilus, there's such a passion, there's such a shturim, because it was so unnatural, it's such a chiddush, it's such a novelty. It's like, wow, it's an overwhelming experience. There's a deep ecstasy. Because it's einoi minoi, that's the point. It's einoi minoi. It's min b'she'einoi minoi. They weren't supposed to merge. The merging is a chiddush. There's a novelty there. It's a transformation that's happening. And there's something very powerful about that. It's the darkness that got transformed into light. The second type of oil, it's not darkness that got transformed into light. It's light. So in the first one, it's darkness that got transformed into light. So in the light, you can see the darkness. There's nothing as powerful as when you take the energy of darkness, and that energy itself becomes a contributor to the light. When you take negative energy and you reorient it into positive energy, the positive energy has a very, very special property to it, which it can't have on its own. Like Yisr Ha'ar Mitoich HaChoshech, it says in Koheles, the Rebbe teaches based on Zohar, that the greatest oil is the oil that comes Mitoich HaChoshech. Not Yisr Ha'ar Min HaChoshech, you see the advantage of light through darkness. Min HaChoshech, literally, Rebbe Melech says in Koheles, Ra'isi ani sheyesh Yisr l'chacham and hasichlis Yisr Ha'ar Min HaChoshech. I saw that there's an advantage to wisdom over folly, like light over darkness. So the Zohar says, V'ra'isi ani, the whole world knows that wisdom is better than stupidity and light is better than darkness. The Zohar didn't know about America today. But the Zohar says, the pshat is, Yisr l'chachma min hasichlis, Yisr Ha'ar Min HaChoshech, it's the Yisr Ha'ar that comes from Choshech. Not min HaChoshech, light is greater than darkness. We know that. The Yisr of oil, when it's min HaChoshech, when it's made from darkness. It's a whole different inyan. In every person's life, there's two inyanim. There's the light that you tune into that was always there, avarabba. There's the light that you create from the darkness, from the problems, from the resistance, from the parts in you that are scared most. Matzasi David Avdi, we're bizdaim. From the parts that are most scary, from the parts that are most dark, from there you create light. That's a whole different type of light. The things that shame you most, those also contain a very, very deep potential for light. The things that I ran away from, the things that I'm embarrassed, the things that I created so many coping mechanisms not to deal with, that's all the nefesh habahamis. And when you bring that into the Eish of Elikus, it's a whole different quality of light. Because it's the animal soul that's on fire. It's a flakert, yeah. It's a flakert. It's not easy because you have to go to dark places. You have to go to the log. You have to get the log on fire. There's a desire to bypass it. But I'm never going to really be able to feel the fire of my nefesh elikis if I don't bring in my nefesh habahamis. V'haftas Hashem elikecha b'chol levavcha, the Mishnah says b'shnei yitzarecha. What's pshat? If you want to love God with all your heart, with a full heart, you need both yitzarim. If not, it's not going to be with a whole heart. It's going to be with an amputated heart. In other words, if you don't bring in all the parts, all the moving parts, it's not b'chol levavcha. Your heart can't be open. The heart is not open. That's why when a person wants to avoid their nefesh habahamis and not deal with it, let me just go to my nefesh halakis. It's not going to be b'chol avavcha. You want b'chol avavcha b'shnei yitzarecha. B'chol avavcha doesn't only mean with all the parts of it. B'chol avavcha means with a ganze heart. The Chazal are not giving up a pshetel. If you want the love should be with a whole heart, with a full heart, with an open heart, you need shnei yitzarecha. Because if one yetzer is not on board, then that part is amputated. It's not going to be b'chol avavcha. You see it clearly. The only way to live with an open heart is when you confront your nefesh habahamis. If you're not ready to confront your nefesh habahamis and all of its colors and shame and manifestations, there's going to be a part of the heart that's cut down. And it's hard to confront that because we want to avoid it. You don't want to go there. And you relate to what I'm saying. We don't want to go there. It's hard. Huh? To communicate with it, to hold space for it, to deal with it, to work with it, to appreciate it, to understand where it's coming from. Shame, it doesn't help. It's really holding space. It's really bringing the fire into it. It's like you also want to be on fire. Obviously, there's so many different stages and different levels. It's not one size fits all, but the concept is it's part of the equation. In a very practical way, we could see it. It's very easy to show up to life, and do the right thing. I know easy, but the way that a lot of people have done things is they showed up to do the right thing. Show up, do the right thing. And it's very beautiful. It's very beautiful. You do the right thing. You show up. What's missing often is you don't feel a heart. You don't feel an open heart. Because you can't forge that. And there's a reason I don't feel an open heart. Because how much of my heart did I have to shut down in order to show up? Yeah, so I become somewhat of a zombie, somewhat of a robot. And even if I don't want to say that, so I say I have a little heart, but deep down I know that my heart is not really, really, really open. And there's a reason for it. I had to shut it down in order to be able to cope. What does it mean, shut it down? That can mean so many different things, but the common denominator is that part of my heart is just not functioning. I had to amputate it. Maybe too much pain, or too much grief, or too much confusion, or too much guilt, whatever it is, just you keep it out of the equation and you just show up. The challenge, however, is that we're living in a generation where what our children especially want is an open heart. And what people are looking for is an open heart. And you can't substitute that. You can't substitute that with words. You can't substitute that just with showing up. It's a real thing. So that's what Alter Rebbe is saying here. The reason is because we cannot be afraid. You don't have to be afraid of your nefesh habahamis. You don't have to be afraid. We don't have to be afraid of the parts in ourselves that make us uncomfortable. We don't have to be afraid of the parts in ourselves that cause us pain. We don't have to be afraid of the parts in ourselves that have caused so much disappointment, or there's so much deep grief over there. We don't have to worship them. This is not about worshiping them and wallowing in despair, but it is about opening bridges of communication. They're not your enemy. No, they're coping. They're coping. And the more a person could bring the fire into that space, that's the Nahira, Tichla of Avas Olam. It's the Ava created from the concealment. Something is blocking you? Good. That's what we need. That's going to be the fuel. That something is blocking you, that can be converted into fuel. Really? That? Yeah, that. But for that you have to look at me. You have to look at it. If you're not ready to look at the log, it's not going to be converted into fuel. So Avas Olam is the Ava created from Helam, from concealment. The concealment itself becomes the fuel of the love. How can that be? Avas Olam, it's a whole new taich in Avas Olam. Not Avas Olam, eternal love. Not Avas Olam, everlasting love. Not even Avas Olam, the love of the world. Avas Olam, the Ava of the Helam. Or to put it in different words, the reason this concealment was created is because there was so much love. And I didn't know how to deal with it. And therefore, so much of it had to go into concealment for me to be able to survive. So if you can really go down to the depth of the Helam, you'll find that it's all Ava. Yeah, it's really your fuel. Yeah, it's art. It's really your art. Fakert. I went into so much concealment because there was so much love. Ein hadinim nimtaken ela b'sharsha. You'll see that most people's coping mechanisms and blockages is directly commensurate with how much love they had. The deeper love, the deeper sensitivity, the more they had to create blockages and walls and fortresses to hide behind because they were too sensitive, they were too loving. It's mamish commensurate with it. So when you can go to the olam and you can say, come, let's find your real spark, it's literally that olam, that helim that creates the ava. That's rishafer, rishveyesh. Once you do that, now you're right away open to the shalheves yutke, to the divine love that also exists in you. That's avarabba. But you cannot get that. You cannot get to that space without the isarusa de lasata. Why not? Because I'm not going to feel it, because I'm closed up. It's there in my subconscious. The avarabba is always there. Shalheves yutke is always there. But I'm not open to it. I'm not a keli to it. Only when I work through the uncomfortable blockages will I be able to experience the Avar Rabba also. That's why V'haftas Hashem Elokecha b'chol levavcha is only b'shnei yitzarecha. You need both yitzarim. Yeah, then the heart will open. Once the heart opens, you'll feel all your parts. You'll feel your nefesh elokis also. And then right away, it's going to be b'chol levavcha. You guys are your chevra toifas dinyan. If not, it's not going to be b'chol levavcha. It's going to be like with a half a heart, or a quarter of a heart, or 5% of the heart. The person is not, they're not alive, their heart is not here. Because this yetzer had to be amputated, it had to be ignored. That's what he says. But the Alter Rebbe adds, Achgam, kadei shi sarus lasata, hu aidei sarus delaila, betchila milmaila, mebchinis shalheves yutke, shenoisen kayach benefesh alakis lavaris and nefesh abahamis, v'liyas rishveyesh. But the truth is, to be able to have a sarusa de lasata, you also need a sarusa de laela. It's true. The sarusa de laela comes after the sarusa de lasata. But in order to be able to have a sarusa de lasata, you first need the shalheves yutke to give the divine soul kayach to be mevada the nefesh abahamis and to make rish veyesh. So through the shafar rish veyesh, you have shalheves yutke. But in order to have rish veyesh, you have to already have a shalheves yutke. The nefesh alakis has to have the confidence to be able to go and transform and be mevada the nefesh abahamis, not to get scared of it. Yeah, you must have that shalheves yutke. Yeah. Not to be afraid of the nefesh abahamis. It has to give it the strength that people need the confidence to be able to go into their dark places. If you don't have that confidence, it's too scary. How do you know you could go there and you won't melt, you won't get destroyed, there's a reason I avoided it my whole life. There's a reason I avoided all my uncomfortable spots my entire life. It was too scary. There's a reason I blocked off my heart. There's a reason we don't go there. There's a reason I'm numb, I'm frozen, I'm detached, I'm angry, I'm resentful, I'm overwhelmed, I'm tired, I'm anxious, I'm afraid. There's a reason. It didn't happen in a vacuum. It's a survival mechanism. So now you're telling me to go to these places and have compassion for them, and ultimately they could become part of my love to myself, to Hashem, to others, etc. The nefesh alakis needs a special koyach to be able to go into those places from a regulated internal space and not melt away. So that's the shalheves yutke that follows the rishveyesh, but also precedes the rishveyesh. V'zhu mashakasav Harizal. This is what the Harizal says. The Harizal writes, the Rishvei Eish, the Knesset Yisrael, meheichon yotze Eish zeh, mishalheves yutke. Ki Eish yotze mecheshben, he says, from where does the Eish of Knesset Yisrael, where did it come from? Eish yotze, where did it come from? It came from the shalheves. Ki Eish yotze mecheshben lahava, it comes from the shalheves of Yutke Mekir Yasich. In other words, Eish yotze mecheshben. Where did the Eish of the Jewish people come from? The Arizal teaches the pasuk. It comes from Shalheves Yutke. He's going to explain more. V'zeu avas olam avticha shekoyach b'chines avas olam liyas nivrer meb'chines olam v'helem belakus hu nimshach haydei ki avticha al kein meshachticha chassid. The pasuk says avas olam avticha al kein meshachticha chassid. The avas olam that we have, the power of avas olam, which means to take a helem and turn it into ava. This comes because I love you, and therefore I have given you this love and given you this confidence to do it. Chava is called Isha because she was taken from Ish. Isha is Eish Hey. Ish is Eish Yud. Eish Yud is Shalheves Yudke, the fire of Hashem, what gives the person the power of Eish Hey. Isha is Kimei Ish Lukachazois, because you have the Shalheves Yudke that came from Ish. So we have it two in Yanim. We have Eish Yatza Mecheshben, and you have Lahava Mekir Yasiche. Eish Yatza Mecheshben, that's the first fire, the Shafar Yishveyesh, the coal. Lahava Mekir Yasiche, that's the flame itself that's connected to Kir Yasiche. Those are the two fires we're talking about. Nahoyre Tichla and Nahoyre Chivra. Now the Rebbe explains, Vihine, Amshoch, Asherusa de La'ela Zu. Litin Keich Benefesh Alikis Levarad Nefesh Bahamas. The power of the Nefesh Alikis Levarad Nefesh Bahamas, Huayde HaMitzvahs. Kameshakasav Tzedakah Tereimim Goy, Kameshakasav Makamachel Al-Pasak HaMagbi L'Shavas. The mitzvahs are the Yisarus of the Leila, they give the power to the divine soul to be Mevaran Nefesh HaBahamas, V'zel Winyan Eish Yotze Mecheshben, Dahainu B'chinas Ma'isa HaMitzvahs. Kedila El Bin Yivnachshav Cheshboine Shalom Hafsid Mitzvah Keneged Schara. The Gemara says, what's Cheshboine Shalom? They make a calculation of the Hafsid of a mitzvah. Keneged Schara, if you lose a mitzvah or you don't lose a mitzvah, and you do the mitzvah and you have the schar. So the Gemara teaches Cheshbon is on mitzvahs. So Eish Yotze Mecheshben, V'lachein Mizeh Nimshach Ki Eish Yotze Liyas Rishafer Yishveyesh. So from the Cheshbon of mitzvahs, Hafsid Mitzvah Keneged Schara, comes the fire of Hashem to give the Nefesh Elikis, the Koyach to be Mevar the Nefesh HaBahamas, to do Rishafer Yishveyesh. So the Eish of Rishafer Yishveyesh, that the Nefesh Elikis brings the Nefesh HaBahamas, is Yotze Mecheshben. It comes from the Koyach of the mitzvahs. The mitzvahs is like a vitamin, like the magnesium, like divine vitamins, in order to give the Nefesh Elikis energy to deal with the Nefesh HaBahamas. Then comes the lahava, that's the flame itself, the white fire that comes on the coal, on the dark fire. Eish is the first fire, and the reason that comes out of the Jew is mecheshben from the mitzvahs, which gives the nefesh elikis the koyach to be mevara the nefesh habamas and be megala the fire. That's the shafer yishveyesh. Then comes lahava, then comes the pure flame itself, mikir yasich, and that's the second flame. This is the flame that comes from above through Torah. This is the Eidin Sev that comes from above, because it says he's a Chacham, but not with the Chachma that's known. In other words, it's a Chachma that is Ein Soif. V'zel lahava mekir yasichin shu esek haTorah kedele el befirish ki edveisecha sichali. That Torah is the Sicha, so that's lahava, the flame from above, comes mikir yasichain from Torah, which is edveisecha sichali. Ma hafti seresecha kol hayoim hi sichasi, because it comes malmaila. Torah is essentially tefillah is the person speaking to God. Torah is the Hashem speaking to the person. So Torah is malmaila lamatom. V'zel, what the pasuk says, umagid la'adam masichai shu hamshachas shem mashu b'chinas bittul. Literally, it means when a person passes away, Hashem tells him what his conversations were. All your conversations are recorded. The Alter Rebbe says, Magid la'adam masichai, which is masichai, a type of sicha that introduces ma. What's ma? Ma is bittul. Nachnu ma. What are we? Ma is the question of what? Curiosity, openness. Ma is bittul. Magid la'adam masichai. You want a type of sicha that accesses ma. Magid la'adam masichai. He's going to show the person what it means to have a sicha that accesses ma. The first fire is called in Kabbalah ban, shem ban begematria behema, because that's the nefesh habahamas. Ma is begematria Adam. Behema is 52. Adam is 45. There's two names of Hashem, ban and ma. It's how you write out Yud Kei Vav Kei. Yud and Hey and Vav and Hey. If you write it out one way, it's Memei. Another way is ban. So the first level of Shafar Yishveyesh is the birur of ban, that's the behema. From there you have Magid la'adam masichai, the birur of ma Adam, which is Torah, which brings in the Shema to be mevara the nefesh habahamas in a deeper way through Avar Rabba. V'Torah b'chinas is dapkus rucha berucha. B'chinas neshikin. Torah is where one ruach connects to another ruach, like a kiss. B'chinas neshikin kfulim, it's a double kiss. When people kiss, mouth to mouth, panim el panim, so your ruach goes into the other person's ruach, like the breaths meet. That's what yishakenim in neshika is piyu. So Torah is that neshikin, kivayachal, Hashem kisses you and you kiss him, because it's rucha berucha. It's like his breath goes into your breath, and you're like mouth to mouth. Your breath goes into my breath goes into your breath. Kibchines neshikin u is dapkus ruche beruche. V'yesh beis mine is dapkus. Ha'alef is sarusa de lasata, ma'ir is sarusa de lasata. One is the sarusa de la'ela, which triggers, which arouses sarusa de lasata. So he starts with the kiss. He puts his ruach into you, like he does mouth to mouth into you. Asher nafachta bi. V'zeu inyan ruach, aisi ruach, sha'ruach hamashpia ma'ir ruach hamakabel. The ruach of the mashpia arouses the ruach of the makabel. V'habezu she'sarusa de lasata v'ruach hamakabel ma'ir is sarusa de la'ela. The opposite. The makabel goes in is ma'ir sarusa de la'ela, like you trigger. You bring out the breath of the sarusa de la'ela. It starts from you. V'zeu inyan amshich ruach she'mamshich ruach hamashpia. There's ruach. It says in Zohar, ruach aisi ruach v'amshich ruach. It says aisi ruach is this starts off with the sarusa de la'ela. That's his kiss, and then his amshich ruach. That's your kiss, which brings in his ruach. So Yotayf is what he's saying. So after we explain what tefillah is, which is tibana v'sikain and irsichain, after that whole beer, he says, now what happens? Now there's an eish yatsa mecheshben. Yeah, it's not just you go away from the nefesh, everything we explained before. Now comes the full experience of love. And the experience of love happens on two levels. There's eish yatsa mecheshben. There's the fire that comes out from the nefesh habahamas by the nefesh halagiz being ma'ir the nefesh habahamas. That's the first level of fire, but you still need a koyach for that. That's the koyach of the mitzvahs. And then there's the lahava, the pure flame that comes out mikirya sichin from Torah, which is ma'afti seresecha kolayem yisichazi. The first sichin is mainly tefillah. The second sichin is mainly Torah, which brings in the second flame, the nahayda chiva, the white flame, which is the experience of Torah, because that's the ultimate neshikin. So in this case, the limud ha-Torah is the just experience of pure intimacy that comes from Ava Rabbah. But the hachana for that is the Nefesh HaBahamis work, which is the first fire, which is the Nahayda Uchma, which brings then to the Nahayda Chivra. And then he adds, mamash another few minutes, he adds Achla Ar Mayav. It eats up the city called Ar Mayav. What's that? Interesting. Mayav is Chachma de Klippa. Mayav comes from the word Av, father. Abba is Chachma, Ima is Bina. So what's Mayav? It's Chachma of Klippa. The Hainu Mashakasa B'Yirmiyah Simendal Chachamim Heima Lahara Lahetiv Layadu. They're Chachamim to do bad. They don't know how to do good. You have what's called Oiba Chachamim. Yeah, Chachmei Chelim they used to call it. He's a Chacham to do bad, not to do good. Oy K'inyan Chartumei Mitzrayim, or like the scientists, the sorcerers of Mitzrayim. Shehu Neged Chachma de Kedusha Shenikra Av. Chachma of Kedusha is called Av. Mayav is the opposite. It's Chachma of Klippa. It's wisdom, but it's Klippa. Kenoida Shatayda Nikra Musar Avicha. V'lachei Nikra Chachma de Klippa Ar Mayav Miloshen Vayihi Erech Nasu Lashav Arecha. Your cities are carried in vain. Al derech zegam kein riboy hayis chakmos. V'hayis b'atachbulos. Yiseres binyonei amaso matan. Al derech koichi v'oitzim yadi asalias achayil. U'meser bitchoynoi me Hashem. When a person becomes completely engulfed in figuring out and manipulating the system of business, and starts believing my own power is what gives me wealth, and removes his betachin from Hashem. What it says that you have to gather your grain, you got to work. That should be yigiyah with your hands, but not to use your brain too much. When the person's entire mind and brain is immersed in the stress of anxiety, they're not just using their hands. It's too much chachma doesn't give you bread. Chachamim doesn't give you bread. Adirabba, machshava mayelas. V'hinehu hagoyrim timtum hamayach. This creates that the mayach becomes plugged, it becomes verstoppt. Shenizgashe machmas hamakose binyanim gashme. Whenever the mayach is just immersed in the materialism of the world, it loses its sensitivity to the inner frequency. Va'afilu deheter, even if it's permissible. Ve'ein nidba kayizbainanus b'gdulas Hashem machmaza. The meditation in Gdulas Hashem just doesn't attach itself to the person. The person rejects it. The brain needs to be open. The mayach needs to be open to edelkeit. When my brain is constantly, outsmarting and figuring out, I go into a frequency of competitiveness, and I have to be smarter than everybody and have to manipulate and exploit. Even if you're not doing anything forbidden, but the person is just immersed in that type of thinking, that type of thoughts, the moyach becomes metumtum. It becomes closed off to being open to a higher reality. That's called moyav. That's called moyav. That's a chachma. It's chachma, it's wisdom, it's brilliance. You could see it sometimes. There's an edel moyach, and that's a mind that's open to it's here's b'malik kalam and saivav kalam, and it says, now I hear something. But something when a moyach it's smart, but it's so immersed in nitty gritty of kaichi v'aitzim yadi. He says, of course you have to work. Of course, basafta the gancha hanek b'minig denechetz. You have to use your mind. But you give kapecha. It's work with your hands. Don't let your moyach become completely consumed, that you're just drowning in the stress and in anxiety of figuring out how to outsmart this one and that one. I mean, everybody relates to this, Mastama. Yeah, I mean, it becomes, of course you have to work. To work, you have to use your head. I shouldn't use my head. What should I use? But there's using your head, and you drown in it. It's like a marble. There's nothing else. You're just stressed over 24/7. You can't be present for anything else. Now the person wants to daven, wants to learn. He hears information, it doesn't go in, doesn't penetrate, because the brain has been fried, so to speak. Yeah, I was just thinking. There was a chassid of the Rebbe Rashab, and he went into the business of kaloshin. Kaloshin are galoshes. They used to call it galoshes, rubbers. Galoshin, yeah. And he was a baltzura. He was a baltzura. He was a prominent person. He had a big mind, a big soul, but he really got overtaken by the business. So he came to the Rebbe Rashab. He took a look at him, and he said, "Bazeh haloshin." He said, "Ich hab schon gesehen in mein Leben a Fuss in Kaloshin. I saw feet in galoshes. A cup in Kaloshin, aber ich habe nicht gesehen." His whole head went into the kaloshin. It wasn't his feet anymore. Your feet belong in kaloshin. How do you have the feet in kaloshin? A cup in kaloshin, aber ich habe nicht gesehen. They say that the Baal Shem Tov once showed his Talmidim Friday night. They were sitting, and he put his hands on them, and he closed his eyes. They sang a niggun, and you know the Maaseh. They saw a ox in a shtreimel was eating meat. Or the ox was wearing a shtreimel, a bull, and eating meat. So they asked him, "What's this?" So he said, "The person is so involved in the meat that he became the behemoth himself." So in Mela, you don't see a person eating meat; you see an ox eating meat because the person became an ox. So they said, "So what's the shtreimel?" He said, "Because the shtreimel is a levush of Shabbos, so that didn't get transformed. So it was a shtreimel on an ox, but the whole person, besides the shtreimel, it was an ox." Yeah. The human ox eats meat. He was so attached to the meat. He became the meat. You know, when you're so passionate about something, that's what energetically. That's what I am. There's nothing else. I am the steak. He became the galoshes. I'll call upon him. That's the idea he's saying here. But through Torah and mitzvahs, the fire comes out of cheshbon. The flame comes out of Sichin and eats up. It eats up our Mayav. It eats up the city of Mayav. Ki achach ma'ilah shemamshrichim aydei Torah mitzvahs hu doiche choshev v'sichlas denefesh habahamis v'aderabba aydei zenes hapech hasechel denefesh habahamis sheba adam lichkolol b'chach v'sheba nefesh alikis hamaskal subas benenes b'gdolus Hashem. The chachma ilah, the higher wisdom that comes through Torah and mitzvahs, pushes away the darkness and the folly of the nefesh habahamis. Aderabba, it takes the seichel of the nefesh habahamis and it brings it into the chachma of the nefesh alikis, which is the mizbein and gdolus Hashem. The nefesh alikis' chachmas always looks for one thing. It always looks for ayin. It always looks for the frequency of no thingness. It looks for mamala kalam and saivav kalam. It looks to go back into that oneness. And that's what it sees. It looks at a leaf, it looks at a tree, it looks at a person, it looks at the world. It goes back to the source. It always looks for the edelkeit of it. The chachma of the nefesh habahamis always catches onto the most superficial element and turns that into the reality. You understand? It doesn't have the bittul of chachma. That's why it's mayav. It's chachma of klippa. It's chachma, but it's the klippa of everything. It looks for the shells, and it turns the shells into the main thing. and then it dedicates its life to analyze the husk, and it thinks it's brilliant. It doesn't know better. It sits by the klippah. That's what it does. It takes the clip of it, and that's what it turns into the main chachma, instead of understanding the pnimius of it. So as a result of eish yatsa mecheshben lahava mekirya sichain is what happens. Achla armayav. It eats up this type of chachma. It doesn't say it destroys it. It eats it. When you eat something, it becomes part of you. It takes the chachma of the nefesh habahamis, and it becomes part of the nefesh halikas. You don't have to destroy the chachma of the nefesh habahamis. You want to eat it. When you eat something, you digest it. It becomes part of your blood. You want to use the chachma, the seichel of the nefesh habahamis, to be nichel in the nefesh halikas. What are you asking? Yeah.
What does he mean by that? Not the moya.
What do you think?
You just said you should use it, but not in the way.
Right. In other words, we're not attacking machshava that a person shouldn't do things with seichel. If they're running a business, they should use their seichel. It's not a mitzvah to say, I only use my hands, I don't think, sorry, I'm going to be dumb. I'll make a dumb investment, I'll make a dumb, whatever, obviously. The question is, if the person becomes completely, obsessed with it, there's nothing else that's left. And he finishes off the last words, Bale Bamois Arnon. The owners, the masters of the platforms of the city called Arnon. There are the two friends that are inseparable, Chachma and Bina. The river comes out of Eden. Arnon has the words Aron. The ark had the tablets. Torah comes from Chachma. The ark that contains the Torah, that contains the luchos, is b'chinas bina. Shu hakli leb'chinas Chachma nekuda behechle. The Aron is bina. The luchos is Chachma. The wisdom, the flow is Chachma. Bina is the vessel that holds on to the Chachma. It consolidates the Chachma. In Zohar it's called nekuda behechle. The nekuda in the chamber, the heichel. The heichel is the keli. Heichel comes from the word lahachil, keli, which is bina. What is bina? Bina is the capacity to understand and comprehend. Chachma is the actual energy. Chachma is like the epiphany that comes in, that's intangible. It's very, very ambiguous. Bina makes it into a structure. Yeah. Abba is the father. Bina is the mother. The father gives like the seed of life. The mother conceives it and develops it and establishes it and grows it. That's Bina. But Chachma is that the Oir, and Bina is the Keli. So Aron is the ark for the Luchas, that's like the Bina for the Chachma. That's why they're two inseparable friends. Chachma without Bina has no Keli. It's like a seed without an egg. Nothing is going to happen. It's nice, it's energy, but there's nothing there. Bina without Chachma is a keli, but there's no iron, right? It's not pollinated, it's not fertilized, like in a man and a woman. So Chachma and Bina are two inseparable friends. They're different, but they need to be together. They're friends that need to work together. Chachma needs Bina as a friend, because Chachma is like a flow. You have an epiphany, you have an insight, but what do you do with it? What do you do with it? People have epiphanies, you're sitting somewhere, wow, you got it. But if you don't bring it down, if you don't concretize it, you don't translate it, you don't write it down, it's you forget it right away. But Bina without Chachma, it's just a keli, but it doesn't have the oir. So it's two inseparable friends. What is that in a person's life? So Alter Rebbe says, "V'hinei Chachma de kedusha hu koyach ma b'chinas bitul oirin seif baruch hu." Chachma of kedusha is koyach ma. What's koyach ma? The koyach to say what? It's bittul to the Ein Sof. It's absolute openness and pure surrender to that which is beyond me. V'yichud zeh de trein reyin hainu liyas b'chinas bittul v'amshachas ha'ayin b'yesh. Having two friends, bringing the luchas into the aron, is that the bittul and the ayin should be able to be brought into the yesh. That's chachma. What does that mean? Chachma is the ability to say, I don't know. I don't know. I'm fine not knowing. I don't know. I surrender to the fact that I don't know. Koyach ma, what? The ability to really, really be curious. It's a very deep state of clarity. You could just be open. In a way, it allows you to be open to everything. Because I don't know. I don't have to hold on. I don't have to be small, safe, in control. I don't have to catch on to it. I don't have to define it. Chachma, there's no definition. It's koyach ma. It's always saying, what? What? Interesting perspective. Maybe there's another perspective. I don't know. Ma, open. It's mystery. It's open to infinite mystery, which is really open to ayin. That's the beginning, because if you're not open to mystery, you're not open to ayin, everything has to become something. Ayin means no thingness. Once you have that, now you could bring that into bina. What does that mean, being into bina? When you're comfortable not knowing, when you're very comfortable in the place of not knowing, which not everybody is, it's a big avodah. When you're completely comfortable to be in a place of not knowing, then when you do know something, you actually can trust it. Because you're not knowing it because you need to control and you need to know. It's because that which is ayin is allowing you to have a little glimmer of it. So those who are completely comfortable in a place of unknowing, when they actually know something, there's a very deep confidence in that knowing. It's like an inner knowing. Why is it an inner knowing? Because if I need to know everything, then my knowing can just be coming from stupidity and arrogance and fear. But if I'm completely comfortable in not knowing anything, then when I do know something, it's because I actually know it. It's because the yesh was open to the ayin. So the more I could be in a place of not knowing, the more I could be in a place of real knowing that is true knowing. It's an inner knowing. So a person has to ask themselves, is my yesh, is my knowing coming because I'm afraid of ayin? And then don't trust it. Because it's probably a very, very limited form of knowing that's full of bias and distortion. But if a person is fully comfortable in the place of ayin, then when they say, I know exactly what to do, I know exactly what's the truth, that knowledge came from ayin. That's what you want to make sure. We're not afraid of bina. We just want bina to always be linked to chachma. There should be a constant flow between knowing and unknowing, between presence and transcendence, between going into a place of no thingness and going into a place of I am. Chachma is transcendence, it's inspiration. Bina is actual understanding and knowing. Very often the two become interrupted. The ayin is one place, the yesh is another place. They have to be two inseparable friends. Inseparable friends means I could constantly shift. I can go into a place of ayin, and when I can go into a place of ayin, I'm fine over there. Kayach ma. And then the yesh is a continuum of the ayin. It's not an interruption of the ayin. It's when the chachma comes into bina, because there's a certain flow that I had the schus to come into bina. You understand the word? That's the secret of Aron. Arnoin. Aron, it's the Aron that contains the luchas. But he finishes, Achazelu umazeh beklippe. Well, how is it in klippe? Nikra bamois arnoin. Over there it's bamois arnoin. What's bamois? A bama is a platform, like a bima. A bama. Kamay medazal elu gase haruach. Chazal say these are the arrogant people. Isi ish chacham be'enov tikva l'ksil mimeno. I've seen a person who's smart in his own eyes. Trust me, you'll have much more hope with somebody who's a fool. Much better than somebody who thinks he's smart is somebody who's a fool. Shu goydem hayesh v'hagasus. Because ish chacham be'enov means he causes yesh and gasus v'u inyan eitz adas toivera v'u hepech mamish michachma salakus sheikayach ma b'chinas bittel. It's the opposite mamish. Chachma salakus is kayach ma. It's bittel. It's complete surrender. That's why it's a bama. Because over there, what's my chachma? My chachma is more yesh. There's no element of kayachma. There's no real curiosity. There's no real surrender. There's no real openness. It's constant me. I have to control. I have to understand. It's always on my terms. The person is completely not open. They're so defensive. They're so arrogant. They're so not shaykh to truth that all of their chachma is built at the paradigm of an ego. Everything. And they will not move from there. Kedusha at its core is, I could surrender everything. I'm just a channel. It's a completely different form of wisdom. One is a wisdom that at its core it's defensive, bamas arnen. And one is a wisdom that at its core, it's completely open to truth. Completely open to truth. There's nothing I'm afraid of. You know why? Because I don't have to be in Yesh, I could be in Ayin. Now when you actually understand something, there's something to hear. Because it's a flow from Ayin. When it's a flow from Ayin, when Bina is the best friend of Chachma, now it's a Geshmak of Bina. When Bina becomes a substitute for Chachma, it becomes an avoidance of Chachma. In practical words, all my brilliance of wisdom is trying to protect me, and it's there's gaslighting, there's stonewalling, there's defensiveness, there's confrontation, etc., etc. There's an ego at its core. It's bama is arnain. I have to be a bama. It's the opposite. Through everything we explained, so now you have they eat up the Bali Bamas Arnon, those who live in the egos of Arnon, where Chachma and Bina is just about the ego. More wisdom, more brilliance. I'll be the Gadol Hadar, I'll be the biggest Talmid Chacham in the generation, I'll be the most respected person, I'll become the person that everybody looks up to and respects. That's Bamas Arnon. That's pure, complete disassociation from oneness. But through the real Torah, that's Mevatel Bamas Arnon. V'zel v'ata al Bamai Seimai Sidrich. Moshe Rabbeinu blesses the Jewish people that you're going to step on their Bamais. You're going to step on their platforms. What's Pshat? What's Pshat is that the whole Nekuda of Bama, you're going to step on it, meaning you're going to realize how insignificant it is, how petty it is to live in that space. You step on it, meaning you're so above it. What is for them the highest state of reality, for you, it's under your feet. Because the moment you realize the vanity of Yeshus, so the whole Bama, you step on it. Al derech imala hecharava. We get filled from its destruction. So that's the Vart. The last Vart is Bali Bamas Arnon. You consume the Bamas of Arnon, which is how Arnon, which is Miloshin Aron, which is Bina, becomes a Bama. Instead of being a flow of Chachma, it becomes an arrogant Metzias. In other words, instead of Bina being a best friend of Chachma, and just saying Chachma here, pass down a little ayin, so I should be able to communicate it, it becomes a substitute for Chachma and wants to take over because it's completely not comfortable with the place of ayin. Only when you're really comfortable in the place of ayin, the place of complete curiosity, of I don't know, then does the bina become a true flow of the ayin. Nechten is gewend der Arizal's Yahrzeit, hey of. Huh? Eitz HaChaim, yeah. Ah? Today is also the B'yoel Khan's Yahrzeit, Vav of. Yeah, Zechroin L'vracha, yeah. Ja, amen. Ah? Ah, ja. Ja. Bist gewählt? Ah, Bemis? Wow. Ja. Vav Av, yeah. Yeah. I want to welcome Reb Moshe from Eretz Yisrael. Reb Moshe from Beit Shemesh, from Atzenu HaKdosha. Reb Moshe was a pillar of the Shia for many, many years, and as he came in here today, he started to bring out the Sfarim, and now he's cleaning up the Sfarim.
How do we get our Reb Moshe's level?
How do we get Reb Moshe's level?
Yeah.
From Moshe to Moshe, there's no Moshe.
You don't have to be on Reb Moshe's level, you have to be on your own level. Reb Moshe will be on his level, you'll be on your level. Marshal, yeah.
Yeah. Says it's clear, evident from the Gemara that the kasha is as much upon him la as the answer is. But I don't know is as much.
Yeah.
By Yeshiva, like they say that when he says in Torah Chiyun, that's as much part of the Torah as your Torah is not more.
Yeah. Ich weiß nicht. Rashi says, Eini yoidea mama lamdeinu, yeah? Eini yoidea mama lamdeinu.
Not a cop out.
Eini Yedea ma melamdeinu. Eini Yedea teaches us ma. Teaches us kayach ma. Eini Yedea ma melamdeinu. Teaches us what ma is. Kayach ma. Chachma is kayach ma. I'm here Shabbos. Yeah, Be'ezer Hashem. Shabbos I'm here, but Monday there's no shir. Next week will be, I think, Thursday and Friday. We'll send it on the WhatsApp. I sent it out, I think, yeah. Everybody have a beautiful, inspiring day. Hatzlacha Rabba. Yeah.